The city buzzed with life as people rushed through the streets, dodging cars and weaving past street vendors hawking everything from hot dogs to handmade jewelry. Amidst all this chaos stood a small flower shop tucked into a quiet corner of the neighborhood. Its sign read Blossom and Buds, painted in soft cursive letters that seemed almost out of place among the towering skyscrapers nearby. Inside, the air was thick with the sweet scent of fresh blooms, roses, lilies, daisies, and carnations arranged neatly in buckets lining the walls. It felt like stepping into another world, one far removed from the noise outside. Unbeknownst to anyone inside, today wasn't going to be just another ordinary day at Blossom and Buds. A tall woman wearing faded jeans, a plain white t-shirt, and an apron walked into the shop. Her baseball cap was pulled low over her face, hiding her sharp features and piercing eyes. She introduced herself simply as Ellie, when the manager glanced up briefly before returning his attention to barking orders at the staff. No one suspected that beneath this casual disguise was Eleanor Hartman, the CEO of Hartman Enterprises, a multi-billion-dollar company known for its diverse portfolio of businesses across industries. Eleanor had decided to go undercover because something had been bothering her lately. Despite running a successful empire, she couldn't shake off the feeling that there was a disconnect between what happened at corporate headquarters and what actually unfolded on the ground. Reports and presentations could only tell her so much. She wanted to experience it firsthand. So here she was, pretending to be a new hire at one of her smallest acquisitions, a humble flower shop that seemed worlds apart from boardroom meetings and billion-dollar deals. The first thing Eleanor noticed about the shop was its charm. Sunlight streamed through the windows, casting golden hues over the colorful arrangements. Customers wandered around, admiring bouquets or chatting animatedly with the staff. But beneath the surface, things weren't quite as rosy as they appeared. There was tension in the air, subtle but unmistakable. Employees moved quickly, heads down, avoiding eye contact with each other, and especially with the manager. Greg, the man in charge, didn't seem particularly warm or welcoming. He strutted around the shop like he owned the place, snapping instructions at whoever crossed his path. His voice carried easily, loud enough to make even the most confident person flinch. Eleanor watched silently as he scolded a young worker for stacking vases too slowly, then turned around to lecture someone else about not greeting customers properly. At first she thought maybe he was having a bad day. Stress could do funny things to people after all. But the more she observed, the clearer it became that this behavior wasn't an anomaly. It was his default setting. Despite Greg's abrasive demeanor, Eleanor tried to focus on getting acquainted with her temporary co-workers. One of them caught her attention almost immediately. A teenage girl with long brown hair tied back in a loose ponytail worked quietly at the far end of the counter. She looked no older than 17 or 18. Yet there was a maturity in the way she handled delicate stems and arranged petals with care. Every now and then she'd glance up nervously as if bracing herself for criticism. This must be Mia, Eleanor thought. She made a mental note to learn more about her later. For now, though, Eleanor kept her head down and followed instructions. She stocked shelves, wrapped bouquets, and assisted customers who came in looking for flowers for birthdays, anniversaries, or just because. Occasionally, she'd catch snippets of conversation between Greg and the team. Some of his comments were dismissive, others downright harsh. Yet none of the employees dared to speak up, not in front of him anyway. They simply nodded, apologized, and hurried back to their tasks, trying to stay invisible. By the end of her first shift, Eleanor's feet ached, and her arms were sore from lifting heavy buckets of water. But physical exhaustion wasn't what weighed on her mind. What troubled her was the realization that this little flower shop, a business meant to bring joy and beauty into people's lives, was being run in a way that stifled creativity and crushed spirits. Something needed to change, but for now all she could do was observe and wait for the right moment to act. As she hung up her apron and stepped out into the evening air, Eleanor took a deep breath. Tomorrow would be another day, another chance to dig deeper into the heart of the problem. Little did she know, the events of the next few days would test her resolve and force her to confront truths she hadn't anticipated. The next morning, Eleanor arrived at the shop a little earlier than usual. She wanted to get a sense of how things operated before Greg showed up and started barking orders. As she tied her apron around her waist, she noticed Mia already hard, at work behind the counter. The young girl was arranging a bouquet of sunflowers and baby's breath with such care that it almost felt like watching an artist paint a masterpiece. Her hands moved delicately, adjusting each stem until the arrangement looked perfect. Eleanor walked over casually, pretending to sort through some ribbons nearby. "Morning," she said with a warm smile. "You're here early." Mia glanced up, startled for a moment before recognizing Ellie. "Oh, hi," she replied softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yeah. I try to come in early so I can finish my homework before the rush starts." "Homework?" Eleanor asked, genuinely curious. "Yeah, I'm still in high school," Mia explained, fiddling with a ribbon nervously. "I want to graduate and maybe go to college someday if I can afford it." Eleanor nodded thoughtfully. "That's impressive. Balancing school and work isn't easy." Mia shrugged, her cheeks flushing slightly. "It's not too bad most days. I just really love flowers. They make people happy, you know. My grandma taught me everything about them when I was little. She used to say flowers are like magic. They heal hearts without saying a word." Eleanor smiled, touched by the sincerity in Mia's voice. But then she noticed something else, a flicker of sadness in the girl's eyes, as though she were holding back tears. Before she could ask more, the bell above the door jingled, signaling the arrival of the first customer of the day. As the hours passed, Eleanor continued observing Mia closely. The teenager worked tirelessly, always polite, and eager to help, even when customers were difficult or demanding. She seemed to have a natural talent for understanding what people wanted, whether it was a cheerful bunch of daisies for a friend's birthday, or an elegant arrangement of roses for a wedding anniversary. Yet despite her obvious skill, Mia rarely received praise from Greg. Instead, he found fault with nearly everything she did. At one point, while organizing a display near the entrance, Mia accidentally knocked over a stack of vases. They clattered to the floor, shattering into pieces. For a split second, the entire shop went silent. Then Greg appeared, his face red with anger. "What is wrong with you?" he shouted, loud enough for everyone, including the customers, to hear. "Can't you even handle something as simple as carrying a vase? Maybe you shouldn't be working here at all?" Mia froze, her face turning bright red. She dropped to her knees immediately, grabbing a broom to clean up the mess. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she didn't say a word. Around her, the other employees exchanged uncomfortable glances, pretending not to notice. Customers shifted awkwardly, unsure whether to leave or stay. Eleanor stood frozen behind the counter, her stomach churning. She had suspected Greg was harsh, but this was beyond anything she'd expected. It wasn't just criticism, it was humiliation. And it was happening right in front of paying customers, no less. When Greg finally stormed off to deal with another issue, Eleanor knelt beside Mia. "Are you okay?" she asked quietly. Mia nodded quickly, avoiding eye contact. "I'm fine," she muttered, sweeping up shards of glass. "It's my fault. I should have been more careful." "No, it's not your fault," Eleanor said firmly. "Accidents happen. He didn't need to talk to you like that." Mia hesitated, her grip tightening on the broom. "It's fine," she repeated, though her voice cracked slightly. "He's always like this. I'm used to it." Eleanor felt a lump rise in her throat. Used to it? How could anyone get used to being treated that way? She wanted to say something, anything, to comfort Mia, but words failed her. Instead, she helped finish cleaning up the mess, silently vowing to keep an even closer eye on Greg's behavior. Later that afternoon, during a rare lull in customers, Eleanor decided to strike up another conversation with Mia. "So tell me more about why you love flowers," she said, leaning against the counter. Mia brightened slightly at the question. "Well, they're kind of like stories, you know? Each flower means something different. Roses are for love, daisies are for innocence, and sunflowers are for happiness. When I put together a bouquet, I think about what message I want it to send. Like, if someone's having a tough day, I'll add extra yellow flowers because they remind me of sunshine breaking through clouds. That's beautiful, Eleanor said honestly. You're really talented. Have you ever thought about doing this professionally? Mia hesitated, biting her lip. I'd love to, but... She trailed off, looking down at her hands. I don't know if I'm good enough. Plus, Greg says I'm clumsy and slow. If he thinks that, how will anyone else see me differently? Eleanor's chest tightened. This wasn't just about confidence. It was about self-worth. Greg's constant negativity was eating away at Mia's belief in herself. And judging by the defeated looks on the other employees' faces whenever he spoke, she wasn't the only one affected. Over the next couple of days, Eleanor kept finding opportunities to talk to Mia during breaks. Slowly, but surely, the teenager began opening up more. She told Ellie about her dreams of becoming a professional florist someday, inspired by her grandmother's passion for gardening. She shared stories about designing arrangements for friends' birthdays and how much joy it brought her to see their reactions. But every time Greg reprimanded her, or worse, publicly embarrassed her, those dreams seemed to dim a little. One evening after closing up the shop, Mia confided in Ellie. Sometimes I think about quitting, she admitted softly. Not because I don't love working here, but because it's exhausting. Every day feels like walking on eggshells. I never know what I'm going to do wrong next. Eleanor listened intently, her heart breaking for the girl. She placed a reassuring hand on Mia's shoulder. You deserve better than this. She said gently, don't let anyone make you feel like you're not capable. You're smart, talented, and kind, and those are qualities that matter far more than how fast you can carry a vase. Mia managed a small smile, though tears still glistened in her eyes. Thanks, Ellie. It means a lot to hear that. As Eleanor watched Mia walk home that night, she couldn't shake the image of the girl's slumped shoulders and weary expression. Something had to change, not just for Mia, but for everyone who worked at Blossom and Buds. Greg's toxic leadership style wasn't just affecting morale, it was stifling potential and destroying confidence. And Eleanor knew exactly whose responsibility it was to fix it. But fixing it wouldn't be easy. Convincing Greg to change his ways would be nearly impossible, and confronting him directly might cause even more tension among the staff. No, Eleanor realized drastic measures were needed. She would have to dig deeper, gather evidence, and find a way to hold him accountable for everyone's sake. With renewed determination, Eleanor prepared herself for the battles ahead. What started as a simple undercover mission had turned into something much bigger. A fight for justice, dignity, and the future of a team that deserved so much better. Over the next few days, Eleanor began paying closer attention to Greg's behavior. She wasn't just observing anymore. She was gathering evidence. Every harsh word, every dismissive comment, every glare that made someone shrink into themselves didn't escape her notice. It wasn't hard to spot patterns. Greg had a way of singling people out, targeting their weaknesses and exploiting them in front of others. He seemed to thrive on making employees feel small, as though tearing them down somehow elevated his own importance. One afternoon, while Eleanor stocked shelves near the cash register, she overheard Greg berating another worker for taking too long with a customer. The employee, a middle-aged man who'd been quietly folding gift wrap, looked visibly shaken as Greg leaned over him, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Are we running a flower shop or hosting a therapy session here? Stop. Wasting time, he snapped before storming off to yell at someone else. Eleanor clenched her fists but forced herself to stay calm. She couldn't afford to blow her cover. Not yet. Instead, she approached the man after Greg disappeared into the back room. Hey, you okay? She asked softly, keeping her tone light so he wouldn't feel uncomfortable. The man sighed heavily, rubbing his temples. Yeah, I'm fine, he muttered, though his slumped posture told a different story. It's always like this. You get used to it after a while. Do you really? Eleanor pressed gently. Or do you just stop expecting anything better? Hesitated, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. Honestly, I don't know how much longer I can take it. My wife keeps telling me to quit, but where else am I going to find a job that pays decent enough to cover rent? Plus, I actually like working with flowers. It's just him. Eleanor nodded, understanding all too well what he meant. This wasn't just about one bad boss. It was about systemic issues that allowed people like Greg to wield power without accountability. And the longer she stayed undercover, the more determined she became to put an end to it. Later that week, Eleanor decided to test Greg herself. If she could provoke a reaction from him firsthand, it would give her even clearer insight into how he operated and provide undeniable proof of his toxic management style. So, during a particularly busy morning when orders were piling up, Eleanor deliberately slowed down while wrapping bouquets. She fumbled with ribbons, dropped scissors, and took twice as long as usual to complete each task. Sure enough, it didn't take long for Greg to notice. Within minutes, he marched over, his face twisted in irritation. "What is wrong with you today?" he barked, loud enough for nearby customers to turn their heads. "Can't you move any faster? We're swamped." Eleanor kept her head down, pretending to focus on tying a bow. "Sorry," she mumbled. "I'll try to pick up the pace." "You'd better," Greg shot back, rolling his eyes dramatically. Then turning to address the entire team, he added, "Honestly, if this is the best effort we're getting, maybe we should rethink our hiring standards." His words hung heavy in the air, leaving a trail of awkward silence behind him. Eleanor felt her blood boil, but she forced herself to remain composed. This was exactly what she needed: concrete examples of his abusive behavior. Still, hearing those cutting remarks firsthand gave her a newfound appreciation for what Mia and the rest of the staff endured daily. As the days went by, Eleanor continued bonding with Mia during breaks. Their conversations grew deeper, revealing layers of resilience and vulnerability beneath the teenager's quiet exterior. One evening, as they sorted through fresh deliveries of roses and tulips, Mia opened up about her struggles outside of work. "My mom works 2 jobs to keep us afloat," she explained, carefully trimming stems with a pair of clippers. "She says I shouldn't complain because at least I have a paycheck coming in, but some nights I just lie awake wondering if I'll ever be good enough, not just for Greg, but for anyone." Eleanor listened intently, her heart aching for the girl. "You are good enough," she said firmly. "Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Talent like yours doesn't come along every day." Mia smiled faintly, though doubt lingered in her expression. "Thanks, Ellie. That means a lot, but sometimes it feels like no matter how hard I try, it's never enough." "It will be," Eleanor promised. "And if it isn't here, then somewhere else. You deserve to work in a place that values you, not tears you down." By the end of the week, Eleanor had seen and heard enough. She knew exactly what kind of person Greg was: insecure, controlling, and utterly unfit to lead a team. But she also understood that exposing him wouldn't be enough. Replacing him with someone equally unqualified or inexperienced would only perpetuate the cycle. What Blossom and Buds needed was a leader who genuinely cared about the staff and believed in their potential. With that in mind, Eleanor started paying closer attention to the other employees. She noticed how one older woman handled conflicts among coworkers with grace and patience, often stepping in to mediate disputes before they escalated. Another employee, a young man who rarely spoke unless spoken to, showed incredible creativity when designing custom arrangements. These were the kinds of qualities Eleanor valued: empathy, collaboration, and innovation. On Friday evening, after closing up the shop, Eleanor pulled aside the older woman. "I've been watching you interact with the team," she began cautiously. "You seem to have a real knack for keeping things running smoothly. Have you ever thought about managing a place like this?" The woman laughed nervously. "Me? Oh no, I'm not cut out for that kind of responsibility." "I think you underestimate yourself," Eleanor replied. "From what I've seen, you already act like a manager. You just don't have the title." The woman blushed, clearly flattered, but hesitant. "Well, I suppose I could give it a shot, if the opportunity came up." Eleanor smiled knowingly. "It might sooner than you think." That night, as Eleanor walked home, she replayed everything she'd witnessed over the past week in her mind. She had the evidence she needed to confront Greg, the support of the team to back her up, and a plan for moving forward. All that was left was timing, but deep down, she knew the hardest part wouldn't be firing Greg. It would be rebuilding trust. Years of mistreatment had left scars on everyone, and healing wouldn't happen overnight. Still, Eleanor was ready to roll up her sleeves and dig in. After all, this wasn't just about fixing a broken workplace, it was about giving people like Mia, a bright, talented young woman with dreams bigger than herself, a chance to flourish, and that Eleanor realized was worth every ounce of effort. Saturday mornings at Blossom and Buds were always chaotic. The shop buzzed with activity as customers streamed in, eager to pick up pre-ordered bouquets or browse last-minute arrangements for weekend celebrations. Eleanor had planned this day carefully, knowing it would be the perfect opportunity to confront Greg once and for all. She wasn't just going to observe anymore, she was going to act. The morning started like any other. Eleanor tied her apron around her waist and slipped on her baseball cap, keeping her disguise intact. Greg strutted around the shop, barking, orders left and right. "Faster!" he yelled at one employee struggling with a large delivery box. "We don't have all day." To another, he snapped, "Why aren't these flowers labeled yet? Do I have to do everything myself?" Eleanor clenched her jaw but kept her cool. She deliberately slowed down while organizing a display near the entrance, letting frustration build inside her. When Greg noticed, she made sure to fumble with a few vases, dropping one intentionally so it clattered loudly onto the floor. Heads turned, including Greg's. "What is wrong with you?" he shouted, storming over. His voice carried across the shop, drawing stares from both employees and customers. "Are you even trying, or are you just here to waste everyone's time?" Eleanor bent down slowly to pick up the pieces, pretending to look flustered. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I'll clean it up." "No kidding, you'll clean?" "It up," Greg spat, throwing his hands in the air. "Honestly, if this is the level of incompetence we're dealing with, maybe we should replace all of you with people who actually care about doing their jobs." The room fell silent. Even the customers stopped what they were doing, watching the scene unfold. Eleanor straightened up slowly, meeting Greg's glare head-on. Then, without hesitation, she reached up and removed her baseball cap, revealing her face clearly for the first time. Greg froze, his mouth hanging open as recognition dawned. "Wait, what? Who?" He stammered, his confidence crumbling. Instantly, "Hello, Greg," Eleanor said calmly, her voice carrying authority despite its quiet tone. "I'm Eleanor Hartman, CEO of Hartman Enterprises, and I've seen enough." For a moment, no one moved. The entire shop held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Greg's face flushed red, whether from embarrassment or anger. It was hard to tell. "Ms. Hartman," he sputtered finally, his voice unsteady. "This isn't what it looks like." "Oh, I think it's exactly what it looks like," Eleanor interrupted, stepping closer. Her tone remained calm, but there was steel beneath it. "I've spent the past week working alongside your team, observing how you treat them. You belittle them, dismiss their ideas, and create an environment where fear trumps creativity. Is that the kind of leadership you think represents my company?" Greg took a step back, visibly rattled. I was just pushing them to perform better," he tried to explain, though his voice lacked conviction. "Sometimes tough love is necessary." "Tough love?" Eleanor cut him off again, her voice rising slightly now. "Is that what you call publicly humiliating someone? Calling them useless in front of customers? Making them feel like they'll never be good enough no matter how hard they try?" She paused, glancing around at the stunned faces of the employees. Some looked shocked, others relieved, but all were listening intently. "Let me make something very clear," she continued, addressing the entire room. "No one deserves to be treated the way you've treated your team, Greg. Not here, not anywhere. Effective immediately, you're relieved of your duties." The words hit like a thunderclap. Greg opened his mouth to protest, but nothing came out. After a long, tense moment, he turned on his heel and stormed toward the back office, slamming the door behind him. A collective sigh rippled through the shop, followed by murmurs of disbelief and relief. Once Greg was gone, Eleanor turned her attention to the team. Their expressions ranged from confusion to cautious optimism. She stepped forward, speaking directly to them now. First, let me apologize for what you've endured under Greg's leadership. None of you deserve that. My company prides itself on fostering environments where people can grow, thrive, and feel valued. Clearly, we've fallen short here, and for that I take full responsibility. Her words seemed to ease some of the tension in the room. One of the older employees nodded appreciatively, while Mia stood quietly, her eyes wide with surprise. Eleanor smiled warmly before continuing. But today marks a new beginning. Moving forward, I want you to know that your voices matter. If there's anything you'd like to share, whether it's feedback, concerns, or ideas, I'm here to listen. A young man raised his hand hesitantly. Does this mean things will change? He asked, his voice tinged with hope. Yes, Eleanor replied firmly. Starting right now, but change won't happen overnight, and I'll need your help to make it stick. Together, we can build a workplace where everyone feels respected and supported. The team exchanged glances, a flicker of excitement spreading among them. For the first time in weeks or maybe months, they allowed themselves to believe that things might actually improve. Later that afternoon, Eleanor pulled aside the older woman she'd spoken to earlier in the week. I need your help, she said earnestly. You've shown incredible patience and leadership skills during your time here. Would you consider stepping into a managerial role temporarily, just until we find a permanent solution? The woman blinked in astonishment. Me? Are you sure? I've never managed anyone before. You already manage without realizing it, Eleanor assured her. Think about it. You mediate conflicts, keep morale up, and ensure everything runs smoothly. Those are the qualities of a great leader. All you need is confidence, and trust that I'll support you every step of the way. After a moment's hesitation, the woman nodded, a small smile breaking through her initial uncertainty. All right, I'll give it a shot. Eleanor grinned, feeling a surge of pride. That's all I ask. With Greg officially out of the picture and a temporary manager in place, the atmosphere at Blossom and Buds began to shift almost immediately. Employees worked together more freely, sharing ideas and collaborating on projects without fear of criticism. Creativity flourished as restrictions lifted, and smiles returned to faces that had been weighed down by stress and self-doubt. Mia, in particular, seemed transformed. Freed from Greg's constant scrutiny, she blossomed like the flowers she loved so much. She took charge of designing custom arrangements, experimenting with bold color combinations and unique styles that delighted customers. Her confidence grew with each passing day, fueled by encouragement from Eleanor and the rest of the team. One evening, as Eleanor helped close up the shop, Mia approached her shyly. Ellie, Ms. Hartman, I just wanted to say thank you, she said, her voice trembling slightly. For believing in me, for standing up for us. I don't think I'll ever forget this. Eleanor placed a reassuring hand on Mia's shoulder. You don't have to thank me, she replied softly. You earned this chance. Keep shining. Okay? The world needs more people like you. As Mia walked away, tears glistening in her eyes, Eleanor felt a deep sense of satisfaction. This undercover mission hadn't just exposed flaws, it had reignited her purpose. Success wasn't measured solely by profits or growth. It was about creating spaces where people could dream, grow, and thrive. And for the first time in a long while, Eleanor knew she was exactly where she needed to be. The days following Greg's departure felt like a breath of fresh air for everyone at Blossom and Buds. The oppressive cloud that had hung over the shop seemed to lift, replaced by a newfound sense of hope and energy. Eleanor stayed on longer than she'd initially planned, determined to ensure the transition was smooth and that the team felt supported every step of the way. She knew firing Greg wasn't enough. It would take time, effort, and genuine care to rebuild trust and create an environment where people could truly thrive. On Monday morning, Eleanor called a meeting with the entire staff. The group gathered in the back room, perched on stools or leaning against shelves stacked with vases and ribbons. For once, there was no tension in the air, just curiosity and cautious optimism. Eleanor stood at the front, her hands clasped together as she addressed the team. "I want to start by thanking each of you," she began, her voice warm but steady. "Not just for sticking it out during tough times, but for continuing to pour your hearts into this shop despite everything. You've shown incredible resilience, and I respect that more than words can say." Her words earned murmurs of appreciation from the group. One employee, a middle-aged man who rarely spoke up, nodded slowly, his expression softening. Another woman smiled faintly, clutching her coffee cup tightly. Eleanor noticed how their body language had shifted. They weren't bracing themselves for criticism anymore. They were listening openly, ready to believe in something better. "But I also know apologies aren't enough," she continued. "Actions speak louder than words. So today, I'm asking all of you, what do you need to feel valued here? How can we make this shop a place where creativity flourishes, where teamwork is celebrated, and where everyone feels safe to be themselves?" For a moment, no one spoke. It was clear the question caught them off guard, not because it was unexpected, but because it was so rare for anyone in power to ask such a thing sincerely. Finally, a young man raised his hand hesitantly. "Could we maybe have more input when it comes to designing arrangements?" he asked, glancing around nervously. "Sometimes we get ideas, but we're afraid to share them because we don't think they'll be taken seriously." Eleanor nodded thoughtfully. "That's a great point. From now on, let's make brainstorming sessions a regular part of our routine. Your ideas matter. They're what keep this shop unique and special. And if something doesn't work, that's okay too. Failure isn't something to fear. It's part of learning." Another employee chimed in, this time an older woman who often worked quietly in the background. "What about breaks?" she suggested gently. "Greg always made us feel guilty for taking even 5 minutes. But sometimes stepping away helps us come back stronger." "You're absolutely right," Eleanor agreed immediately. "Breaks aren't a luxury. They're a necessity. Let's set aside specific times throughout the day where everyone can recharge without feeling rushed or judged. We'll make it part of the schedule moving forward." As the conversation continued, more voices joined in. Someone mentioned wanting clearer communication about expectations, while another requested opportunities for training and skill building. Each suggestion was met with nods of agreement, and Eleanor jotted down notes diligently, ensuring nothing was overlooked. By the end of the meeting, the room buzzed with excitement. For the first time in ages, the employees felt heard and seen. Over the next few weeks, Eleanor rolled up her sleeves and got to work implementing these changes. The temporary manager she'd appointed proved to be a natural leader, fostering open dialogue and encouraging collaboration among the team. Together, they introduced new initiatives designed to empower everyone in the shop. Weekly brainstorming sessions became a highlight, giving employees the chance to pitch creative ideas for theme displays or seasonal promotions. Feedback was given constructively, focusing on growth rather than fault-finding. Mia, in particular, thrived under the new system. Freed from Greg's constant negativity, she blossomed into a confident and innovative florist. Her designs grew, bolder, incorporating unexpected elements like dried lavender sprigs or clusters of wildflowers. Customers raved about her creations, often returning specifically to request her work. Seeing Mia's progress filled Eleanor with pride, not just because of her talent, but because of the resilience she'd shown in overcoming adversity. One afternoon, as Eleanor helped arrange bouquets alongside Mia, she couldn't help but marvel at the transformation. "You've really found your stride," she said with a smile. "Your arrangements are stunning." Mia blushed, though her grin was unmistakable. "Thanks, Ms. Hartman. It's easier to focus now that I'm not constantly worried about messing up. Plus, having a say in things makes me feel like I'm actually contributing, you know?" "That's exactly how it should be," Eleanor replied. "Your voice matters, Mia. Never forget that." Despite the progress, Eleanor knew the road ahead wouldn't always be easy. Rebuilding trust took time, especially after years of being told they weren't good enough. Some employees still struggled with self-doubt, hesitant to take risks even when encouraged. Others carried emotional scars from Greg's verbal abuse, needing extra reassurance before fully embracing the changes. To address this, Eleanor organized informal check-ins with the team, sitting down one-on-one to hear their thoughts and concerns. These conversations revealed deeper layers of their experiences, stories of financial struggles, personal losses, and dreams deferred. Each story reinforced her belief that businesses weren't just about profits. They were about people. Every employee brought their whole selves to work, carrying burdens and aspirations that shaped how they showed up every day. During one such check-in, Mia opened up about her fears of pursuing floristry professionally. "I love what I do here," she admitted, twisting a ribbon nervously between her fingers. "But part of me wonders if I'm just fooling myself. What if I'm not cut out for it? What if I fail?" Eleanor leaned forward, her gaze steady yet kind. "Let me tell you something, Mia. Success isn't about never failing. It's about getting back up every time you do. Talent like yours doesn't come along every day, and passion like yours is even rarer. If you're willing to put in the work, I have no doubt you'll succeed." She pulled out a piece of paper and slid it across the table. "Here's an application for a scholarship program I sponsor," she explained. "It's for aspiring florists who want to hone their craft. I think you'd be perfect for it." Tears welled up in Mia's eyes as she stared at the form. I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Eleanor urged gently. "Believe in yourself even if it's hard at first, because I already believe in you." As the weeks turned into months, Blossom and Buds transformed into a vibrant hub of creativity and camaraderie. Employees laughed together during busy shifts, supported one another through challenges, and celebrated milestones big and small. The shop itself reflected this renewed spirit, with bold displays and personalized touches that drew customers in droves. Word spread quickly about the talented team behind the counter, and soon the shop became a local favorite. For Eleanor, the experience was life-changing. Going undercover hadn't just exposed flaws within the company, it had reminded her why she started Hartman Enterprises in the first place. Success wasn't measured by numbers on a balance sheet. It was measured by the smiles on people's faces, the dreams they dared to chase, and the lives they touched along the way. When the time finally came for Eleanor to return to her role as CEO, she gathered the team for one last heartfelt farewell. Standing in the shop surrounded by flowers, she looked around at the faces that had taught her so much. "When I came here," she began, her voice thick with emotion, "I thought I'd learn about running a business. Instead, I learned about humanity. Each of you has reminded me what it means to lead with empathy, courage, and heart." She paused, locking eyes with Mia briefly before addressing the entire group. "Thank you for trusting me, for letting me be part of this journey. This shop isn't just a business, it's a family, and families stick together no matter what." As she walked out the door, Eleanor felt lighter than she had in years. The undercover stint hadn't just changed Blossom and Buds, it had changed her. And thanks to her actions, the little flower shop bloomed brighter than ever before, a testament to the power of kindness, resilience, and belief in one another. Eleanor's final day at Blossom and Buds arrived sooner than anyone expected, including herself. Though her original plan had been to stay undercover for just a week, the experience had grown into something far deeper, a journey of connection, growth, and rediscovery. As she prepared to leave, emotions ran high among the team. They weren't just saying goodbye to their temporary co-worker. They were bidding farewell to someone who had transformed their workplace and their lives. The morning started like any other. Eleanor tied her apron around her waist one last time, joining the team as they prepped for the day ahead. The shop buzzed with its usual energy, but there was an undercurrent of sadness in the air. Employees exchanged knowing glances, whispering about how much they'd miss having Ellie, now known to them as Ms. Hartman, around. Even Mia, who had grown particularly close to Eleanor, seemed quieter than usual. Her focus on arranging bouquets tinged with melancholy. As the hours passed, customers streamed in steadily, picking up orders or browsing displays. Despite the busy pace, Eleanor found moments to connect with each member of the team individually. She shared quiet words of encouragement with the older woman, now serving as interim manager, reminding her of her strengths and potential. She joked with the young man whose creativity had flourished under the new system, teasing him about his bold color combinations while praising his innovative spirit. And when she reached Mia, Eleanor paused, placing a gentle hand on the teenager's shoulder. "You've done amazing work here," Eleanor said softly, her voice filled with pride. "I hope you know how much I believe in you." Mia looked up, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "I couldn't have done it without you," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "You gave me a chance when no one else did." Eleanor shook her head, smiling warmly. "No, Mia, you gave yourself that chance. All I did was remind you of what you already knew. You're capable, talented, and strong. Don't ever forget that." By late afternoon, the shop began to quiet down as the rush subsided. Eleanor gathered everyone together for one last meeting before she left. The group settled into their usual spots in the back room, though this time the mood was bittersweet. Eleanor stood at the front, her hands clasped tightly as she searched for the right words. "When I first walked into this shop weeks ago," she began, her voice steady but laced with emotion, "I didn't know what to expect. I thought I'd learn about running a business from the ground up, but instead I learned something far more valuable. I learned about people." She paused, letting her gaze sweep across the room. "Each of you has taught me lessons I'll carry with me forever. About resilience, about kindness, about finding beauty even in the toughest situations. You've reminded me why I started my company in the first place, not just to build businesses, but to create spaces where people can thrive." Her words hung in the air, resonating deeply with everyone present. The older woman wiped away a tear, while the young man nodded solemnly. Even those who rarely spoke chimed in with murmurs of agreement, their voices blending into a chorus of gratitude. "But let me be clear," Eleanor continued, her tone shifting slightly to emphasize her point. "This isn't goodbye, not really. What we've built here doesn't end today. It's a foundation, a promise to keep moving forward together. I trust all of you to continue fostering this culture of support, creativity, and respect, because that's what makes Blossom and Bud special. Not me, not Greg, not anyone else, but you." The room erupted into applause, heartfelt and genuine. For the first time in years, the employees felt proud, not just of their work, but of themselves. They had weathered storms, faced challenges head-on, and emerged stronger because of it. And now, thanks to Eleanor, they had the tools and confidence to keep growing. Before leaving, Eleanor handed out small tokens of appreciation to each employee. To the older woman stepping into a leadership role, she gifted a book on effective management strategies inscribed with a personal note. "Leadership is about lifting others up. You're already doing that beautifully." To the young man whose designs had wowed customers, she gave a set of professional-grade floral tools, encouraging him to keep pushing boundaries. And to Mia, she presented the scholarship application, once again along with a handwritten letter. "Dear Mia," the note read, "your talent and passion inspire me every day. Don't let fear hold you back from chasing your dreams. This scholarship is just the beginning. I can't wait to see where your journey takes you. Remember, you are enough. Always." Tears streamed down Mia's face as she hugged Eleanor tightly. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling. "For everything." As Eleanor stepped outside for the last time, she took a deep breath, savoring the crisp autumn air. The streets were alive with the hum of activity, yet she felt a profound sense of peace. This undercover mission had changed her in ways she hadn't anticipated. It wasn't just about fixing a broken workplace, it was about reconnecting with her purpose, her humanity, and the values that had driven her to build Hartman Enterprises in the first place. Walking away from Blossom and Buds, Eleanor reflected on the lessons she'd learned. Success wasn't measured by profits or accolades, it was measured by the impact you had on others. By creating environments where people felt valued, supported, and empowered to dream big, you could change lives, including your own. Back at the shop, the team carried on with renewed determination. Under the guidance of their interim manager, they embraced the changes Eleanor had helped implement, ensuring the shop remained a beacon of positivity and creativity. Customers continued to rave about the unique arrangements and warm service, unaware of the transformation that had taken place behind the scenes. And Mia? She poured her heart into filling out the scholarship application, channeling her fears into fuel for her ambition. With Eleanor's unwavering belief cheering her on, she submitted the form, daring to imagine a future where her dreams might come true. Months later, Eleanor received an email with the subject line, "Thank you." Attached was a photo of Mia standing proudly in front of a stunning floral display, wearing a badge that read, "Scholarship Recipient." Beneath the image was a simple message, "Because of you, I'm becoming the person I always hoped I could." As she was reading those words, Eleanor smiled, her heart swelling with pride. This wasn't just a story about a CEO going undercover. It was a story about courage, compassion, and the ripple effect of believing in someone. And as long as places like Blossom and Buds existed, spreading joy and hope through petals and stems, Eleanor knew the world would be a little brighter, one flower at a time.